Good morning, everybody. All right. So a lot of running in place. I would say it was somewhat bullish yesterday. Not that things rallied to the extent that they did. They only reached an area of, minor resistance area. But I really thought it would come down, get down a little further into this minor support area, and buyers stepped up, right here. A little more aggressive. It was began to bottom out there and push up. Now it's come up to this resistance area. And essentially, if you can visualize this on a line chart, maybe I have one here. Spider, there you go. It's just doing nothing. It came down real hard, broke through these lows right here, that little congestion area, and hasn't gotten down into this little minor support area. So a little bounce up. So, yesterday's low will now be our first reference point of support. Things are holding up okay, up a little bit here, pre-market. Where are they, give or take? Yeah, pretty decently gapping up into yesterday's bar. Away from yesterday's low, which suggests yesterday's low, we could assume that it would hold on a move down, or that if it was to go down to yesterday's low and break it, it would probably bounce up. So the idea of, what I said this morning, the intro screen, markets attempt to bounce ahead of inflation data. So we've got core inflation tomorrow. It's going to be obviously a number well focused on and may move the markets, but this rally off of the low and this support level here, if we should get a move down there today and even break that low, I think buyers would step up again. Of course, does it begin to sell off and go down there? We'll all see it at the open. I don't think it's going to go up very much either, since it's got all, this overhead congestion here to deal with. So I think we're still going to be range bound, give or take, in this area. And then we'll see what comes tomorrow on that news. All right. S&Ps, move off of there, up at resistance. I don't think it's going up above here by any significant amount today. As I've talked about earlier this week a few times, related to, I think, the dollar and interest rates, because it applies to everything. Once you get a rally and of significance, and this is only an intraday chart, but it is a rally of significance, what is the reaction when it gets to resistance? Does it, like here, does it fall all the way back again? Or does it go sideways? Going sideways implies that demand is still strong. And if it dips down and comes back up again, downside shakeouts, red bars ignored, then it shifts your bias to, hey, that bullish price action supports that it could go higher. And of course, higher to where? Well, the next stopping point or maybe beyond. Depends on how long the congestion is of just going sideways over here. From a longer perspective, weekly chart, what's going on this week so far is no big deal in relation to the big red bar down. It's in the lower quarter, just consolidating. We still got today, tomorrow, Friday to see what comes of this week. But so far, it's just running in place, waiting for whatever might get it to move one way or another. SPX. Yep. Jake has got the same thing I got. And I think this is pretty much, should be close to a no-brainer. The bottom side is down below yesterday's low. And since it's at resistance, It should be okay. Again, but it could break that. But since it's at resistance, odds are it's not going to go much higher in the short term. So this 45.40 level is above this red bar, right? That big reversal bar and, like 20 wide. It should be fine. It would have to rally all the way up there. And all we're interested with a credit spread is, where is it unlikely to go today? Because it's 0 DTE. It's not tomorrow. It's not next week. It's not Friday. It's today. And that's the beauty part of it, as long as you get it right. Qs bouncing up here a little bit. Well, not a big deal. Yesterday, they tagged the rising 50 MA and a little support here. They're down below their minus support. They are weaker. So they were stronger before. Now they're leading the way down with interest rates going up. Pressure on them. You can see the weekly chart, the red bar, the topping tail breakout failure, plenty of support down here. So that 15,000 level is what we're going to be focused on if prices should get down there, is how that holds or not. This is a significant level down there. Let's take a peek at the Qs. Look at the gap. And gapping to the top of yesterday's bar. So, with plenty of congestion overhead. So, like a good start to the day. How much more it can do, but it's trying to bounce or make a tradable low in this area, and we'll see how that develops. Russell, that got turned around in a big way. It came down to this minus support level. The financials were falling, and then they turned around. There was that downgrade of the banks. Had this drop, and then they began grinding their way up throughout the day. And the move up was a grind yesterday, meaning you could see how on the 5-minute it began to trend up. But look at the AD line. It's not like it spiked up and the ticks, as came down here. And we mentioned in the green room, this is starting to make a bottom, right? It came down and it starts going sideways. But during that whole way up, not until it got up here is where, some buying, late in the day, I guess those that were like in denial that it was going up. But as we measure how something's going up, like over here, what we'd like to have seen on this tick would have been it tag plus 1,000 on the way up here, rather than just kind of jiggling around here. It was above the 0 level, but staying below the plus 600. So getting above that plus 600 is where you start getting some, I don't know, serious, but more wide-based buying participation, and that just didn't happen. So it was just a grinder on the way up here. And then when it did tag that plus 1,000, that's when I mentioned in the room, this accelerated higher to hit 1,000. It was at minor resistance. And so while it was still grinding up there rather than falling back, that was a positive sign. It held on to the gain. But, now supposedly the heavy lifting begins. But these banks coming back as they did, that's a positive sign. They can continue to go sideways here. So we'll keep an eye on that. YM, just kind of a mess after that move down, coming back up into a topping tail bar and then back down sideways. So a lot of indecision at this time. Let's look at the transports. Not bad, coming down into this support level. We looked earlier in the week at the ETF, which there are more stocks in there, and that violated the uptrend. but did turn around after the gap yesterday, like everything else did. Things kind of moving together. Still got the red bar on the weekly. I think, ahead of the inflation news, probably we don't do too much. And then, hey, if it's good tomorrow, maybe the markets can get a little legs underneath them. Just peek at our internals. They're improving. They're not there yet. We need a little more bearishness to get sentiment down here into these green bands. So a little bit more downside, some intraday pops lower. It could do it. We'll see by the end of the week if that changes. Interest rates aren't doing too much. Pulling back to where buyers are going to want to step up. And I say that only because of the strength of this move up. When we see this, whether it's interest rates or anything else, as it begins to pull back to where it moved up from like that, buyers are typically going to show up there. So something to keep an eye on to see if this does start moving up or lower. Lower should help the markets continue to attempt to make the turn, and up not. The 30-year not pulling back as much, showing relative strength to the 10 at this point. Maybe you saw on the news this morning, 30-year mortgages are now over 7%. So it's not good if you're looking to buy a house compared to what it was a year ago, that's for sure. All right, oil moving up, still strong. Looks like it's going higher. It is at the top of the trading range, but buyers are stepping up on the dip. That's not a good sign as far as the inflation idea. And a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago, we mentioned the price of gasoline spiking higher and breaking out. And right now, we've got what appears to be shaping up as a continuation pattern on the weekly chart. And that is going, if that does shape up and takes out these highs, I don't see it as how it can be a positive for the markets. And the whole idea of inflation coming down, they always have their inflation number where they exclude food and energy. Very convenient to do that, especially when energy prices are rising. Oil, we looked at. Bitcoin shaping up nicely. You can see it looked like it was going to go down into the void. It made another attempt and it popped back up. There was a topping tail and it didn't follow through. And now we got this wide range bar. It's resting here so far, but this is the type of pattern that suggests it's going to go up. Well, that's looking good. Silver is coming down to support. It's just a big mess, this kind of strength. And the whole idea of this kind of strength and buyers on the pullback, well, they were there and it failed because interest rates went up and the dollar went up. And we reviewed this earlier, last week and this week, how the dollar moved up and now it's up at the top of the trading range. And we'll see, does it begin to fall back down or does it hold up there? Same analysis. When something reaches resistance, what does it do? Does it go sideways? That's bullish. Does it fall all the way back down again? Well, of course, that's bearish. Just common sense. All righty. Now, gold is holding up pretty well in relation to silver. So this is interesting to keep an eye on. Now, of course, we will. But set alert here to see, gold. And it's a good example of coming up into the top of the trading range and going sideways here. So I don't know why, meaning if the dollar is going up and silver is going down, but gold is not reacting in the way that it should, something underlying here is a positive for gold. And as long as this goes sideways at the top of the range here, say it holds this 50 MA and then starts to move up, and look at the weekly chart with this bottoming tail bar, we should be buyers of GLD. And in that light, gold stocks should follow suit. Silver testing its 50, but the depth of retracement, well, no, this is SI. I don't know what you mean by Is that a stocks symbol, Steve? You put a / in front of it. Well, these are the silver futures right here. This is a continuous contract, but 50 weekly. I don't see that as being of any significance, to tell you the truth. Now, here it's down below the 200. So I don't look at a weekly chart with these same moving averages, because the majorities are looking at the 50 and the 200 on a daily chart. Maybe to some extent, some people do just because they change time frames, but moving averages become a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I mean, it's how many people are looking at them. If you change this moving average to, say, a exponential, I don't know, 22 moving average, or a 75, when nobody's looking at it, and it becomes meaningless. Does the moving average line up with support and resistance? Like this 50 here lined up with nothing. So it, it just sliced right through it. And this is the subjectivity of technical analysis, and why we all scratch our heads about certain things that we learn about. Moving averages, support and resistance, and fib levels, and so on and so forth. So, all right, I think that's covered interest rates. The VIX, we can take a quick peek at, but it's probably wiggling around here. So we'll see. Today just looks like it could be another range-bound day, back and forth, waiting for the news tomorrow on inflation. All yours, Dan.
Good morning. As always, even though we don't want to maybe trade the broader market, we find individual beautiful setups. A lot of earnings here left. I think I read that 450 of the S&P 500 is reported, so we're bulk of it is through. But like, here's when I was looking at my old watch list last night. MOH here, regardless of what the market's doing, if this was today, Wednesday, if this takes out Monday's high, beautiful 1, 2, 3. Mohawk's been on my list for a while. It was on my list over here. Now we kind of have this concept, I don't know, we just kind of invented it. I don't know if it's the right term, like second go around. So this was a failed buy setup, but it's healing, and it's still bullish daily, weekly. So I got a red bar ignored. I got a bunch of bottoming tails here. I got a range expansion. If this can get above Monday's high, I got a big old void, and I got a buy setup on the weekly. So see, sometimes I just keep watching things for a little bit. Here's another example. Mitch. Breakout failure. Came in hard, nothing to do. Now it's gapping up a little bit. Nothing to do now, but it's I got a rising 20, rising 50. It's showing signs of stabilizing here, and weekly, monthly. So, not a good example. All right, let's go. I did 5 earnings trades. I only gave 1, which was this Docs. We did a Condor, 30, 27.5, and a 37.5, 40. And it was a perfect setup. I mean, flag 20, 50, and it's getting whacked to the downside. So I'll be managing it, but we took in 90 cents on a $2.50 wide. So our total max loss is $1.60 a share. So it's not a disaster, even though it's a disaster gap. So I told Greg what I'm going to be looking to do is close the short calls for a penny. I got an order out already. And then wait for a bullish setup. and try to unhedge it. So if it's a bullish setup, that means I would get rid of the long put and get a bounce on the short put and minimize my loss, or best case scenario, turn it into a winner. Right in here, these are earning stocks now. I'm Riven. This thing blasted. Wow. Down a little bit here, topping pattern, but still very bullish weekly. Nothing to do now though. SMCI. I do, you all know I've had this on my call spread watch, just because it's a climb on the monthly. This thing went from $50 to $350. So now it's gapping down. I looked yesterday, we could have gone the 480s were $1 yesterday into earnings. So the crazy spike volatility, but it's we got our gap down today, so I'll be looking at sell call spreads. Yeah, Joe, it's against me. You didn't hear me dodge it, right? That's how I'm gonna deal with it. I'm in the trade. Some people only talk about their winners, and not us. We track every open and closed trade. Raul asking about CBay. Yeah, this is on my list. Oh, no, it's not. I'm mixing up with SPX down here, bottom right. It is a beautiful buy setup, Raul. The only thing I noticed right here is therapeutics, so keep that in mind. But it's a beautiful buy setup, sure. I like it. And Archer, he's asking about, yeah, it's a deeper retracement, so don't expect a new high, but it is a buy setup, sure. Yeah, I'll put that on the list. You know what this reminds me of? I have this on my list too. Look at LNG. That's a buy setup. It's the gap reversal on earnings. It's holding the upper 50%. And oh shoot, I didn't see it gapping up here today. So that is a beautiful buy setup. I love these. All right, where am I? Mara. No pattern. Lift. I personally did a short strangle. I shorted the 950s and the 1350s. So I have a bid out for a nickel to close that. Here's another buy setup, but deep, big gap. Happened down here to the 50. Still has room to fall though. We'll come back. SOUN is one of these little AI stocks that we're moving with the stock symbol AI. 223, no pattern. Tossed, big old gap, 23 and change, gap and resistance. RBT. There were so many stocks reporting yesterday that were under $5. That's gapping down. All right, here's SPX. See 19. I had it here in the bottom right. This is a Chinese retailer. Now I would like it better if it were gapping to 1850. I love them when they gap just over resistance with a big old price void, but it's on my list, bottom right. Thomas below. Yeah, I actually like what's the one? Let's see, I told Greg earlier what symbol is that? Slob. I like slob better, the A/B test, gap reversal, bullet. This is a big old bull rectangle. What I don't like is it's a Climo and gap on the weekly. I'm sorry, in the 15-minute. Oh, look at it right now going SPX. South Korea's, okay, thanks, Patrick. Yeah, that's why, I said I said retailer, and that's because I got that off of got it off of TC 2000 sector. Clove, a cheapo, but it's far from the 20, but strong. It's a buy setup with a 180. It's worth watching. Airy 2145, gap's too big, but that's a pro gap. Laser, no price void. Real 235, no price void. HL. You could set, I think I set an alarm at 518. It's top of the range, bottom of the range. So it's a place where it should reverse. MQ 577, that's a pro gap. It's a pro gap, but there's no entry. Hey, McGraw, said G alarm just went off. I know you follow this one. I've been following it, ever since the big thing there. All right, so said G, let's start tracking that. It's broke its downtrend here on the 15. Rocket Lab 7.25. It's a nice buy setup on the weekly. Let's watch that on the pullback. We looked at that one already. 16. All right, this is gapping to the prior low. So let's see if it can take out a 30-minute high. Bumble. This would have been a good trade over yesterday's high. But now it's a bearish gap. Looks like a short 30-minute low. This was one I said would be a great gap breakout trade. If it could gap to the top of the range here, I don't see any prints. Let me set an alarm. 23. Oh, I got it already. 2385. See that? AZEC. It's strong, but no pattern. Tallow, gapping up. It's strong. Watch a pullback. Pod. This would have been a good gap and snap if it were gapping down like 10, 15, $20. Wide range bar on volume, far from the 20 into earnings. The power downtrend here. Here, I'm going to get rid of this docs. I have it on the other computer. Let's put pod there. Hey, EDR, I just talked about that. Look at that. What did I just say about 30 seconds ago? I said if it can open up here, it'd be a nice breakout trade daily, weekly. It's exactly what it just did. All right, I'm going to put this here now. If somebody wants to watch Saping for us, docs we looked at, DHT, come back. CLH, that's a big old gap. Wow. So that's a nice gap, but it's ideally if it were gapping right here to the high of this bar, then I'd be all over it because you got a nice gap breakdown failure, but the gap's too big for me. Akamai, wow, look at that gap. Man, that's a big old space. This was one I contemplated selling $90 puts yesterday. I did not do it. It would have worked great if it did. Look, bottom right, EDR. Alex, this was the one I was talking about buying calls. Remember last night into earnings? Because I said if it would the gap near this high, 25 was my target. That would have been a nice trade. I got filled on something. I heard a bell. Let's see what I got filled on so I can delete it. All right, I got filled on my curl. Remember I told you I shorted the 190s? Shorted them for, I think, $1.15, and I just got out at 10 cents. So that was a beautiful trade. Elta is asking about triple M. I had Elta. It's a deep retracement. It is a buy setup. It's on the 50. You do have a bottoming tail. The little relative weakness today, not gapping up with the market. But let's set an alarm. This is pre-market. Let's set an alarm at 104.25. And then it I don't mind trading buy setups with deep retracements. You just don't, kind of just as a rough rule of thumb, I look for 40-50% retracement. And then as swing traders, nothing wrong with that. All right, market. Whoa, IWM tanking here. Alex, you never told me yesterday why I should have been focused on IWM. You left. But we can talk about it later. All right, I set an alarm 104.25. All right, Mo. Wow. Okay, my alarm was early. It did not trigger. This was a 1, 2, 3. The true entry 313.56. So it is early.